So Tulsi Gabbard has pretty much pissed off everybody lately, all the independent journalists who ever supported her. She's pulling kind of a Debbie Wasserman Schultz slash Stacey Plaskett by labeling journalists critical of Israel as so-called reporters. I actually want to play the Stacey Plaskett clip for you so that you could kind of contrast and compare. And then we're going to play the Tulsi Gabbard clip. But remember when Stacey Plaskett said this to Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger?
And to praise him for his work. This isn't just a matter of what data was given to these so-called journalists before us now. There are many legitimate questions about where Musk got the financing to buy Twitter. We know for a fact that foreign countries like Qatar.
So-called journalists. Okay, so here's Tulsi Gabbard saying so-called reporters. Watch this.
When you listen to that Sky News reporter and the question that she asked, she's emblematic of this broader issue we're seeing with many so-called reporters who aren't just reporting facts, but instead essentially doing Hamas's work for them. Hamas's goal is to turn the world against Israel in order to reach their objective goal and the goal of other Islamist groups and countries, frankly, which is wipe Israel off the face of the earth. They're succeeding in doing that by using these reporters who have become their propagandists.
Yeah.
And those who are naturally compassionate by nature are hearing this and hearing things that are not representative of the truth and falling for it and turning against Israel and not actually seeing the truth of how Islamists and terrorist groups like Hamas, as you know, ISIS and Al-Qaeda and others, they have always used civilians as human shields. They have always hidden behind them for this exact reason, because they know that the news media, many of them, will throw this propaganda out there without telling the full story about their barbaric tactics and their willingness to sacrifice women and children, innocent civilians, to achieve their objective. And so people need to understand the whole truth on this whole war.
The whole truth on this whole war. Yes, I mean, Hamas is using human shields, so I guess they just all have to die. Oh, well, I mean, you know, that's just how it goes. I mean, that is just so disgusting. What's interesting about this is that Tulsi has completely changed her own viewpoint on Israel. That is, you know, that's a big question that a lot of people have, is why has she changed? Do we have her tweets? We have some of her old tweets here. Here's one she wrote. This is in 2018. She says, Israel needs to stop using live ammunition in its response to unarmed protesters in Gaza. It has resulted in over 50 dead and thousands seriously wounded. So there she was, siding with the Gazans, understanding that Israel's using live ammunition on these innocent people. And she's saying, this needs to stop. Here's another one. She says, another example of Trump and Netanyahu putting their own political interests ahead of the interests of our respective countries will escalate tensions and the likelihood of war between Israel, U.S., Syria, Iran, Russia. Short-sighted, she said. This was from a response to a New York Times in 2019. This was in 2019. President Trump says the U.S. should recognize Israel's authority over the Golan Heights. So the annexation of the Golan Heights. And she's saying this is dangerous. Trump and Netanyahu are escalating. What is she thinking that this tension, escalating the tensions, would result in? Because if you just have tension, what does that matter, right? If it doesn't result in something bad. The reason why you don't want tension is because it results in the types of things that we saw on October 7th. It results in people rising up and committing heinous acts. It results in war, heinous wars. It results in these types of heinous killings of oftentimes civilians rather than combatants. That is why we want to keep tensions down. We don't want to go to war. We don't want there to be terrorist attacks. We don't want there to be uprisings, and we don't want any of that. So you got it. So that's why you don't want tension, right? So she acknowledged right there that tension leads to these bad things, which is why we don't want it. She goes on to say, here's another one that she wrote. This is also from 2019. I've always supported Israel's right to exist, especially after visiting Auschwitz in 2005. That's why I'm so concerned with Netanyahu's aggressive annexation policies, which will simply stoke the flames of resentment and conflict. Bad for Israel, U.S., Palestinians, and region. Again, stoking flames leads to what? War, atrocities, terrorist attacks. That's what it leads to. That's why you don't want that kind of stuff. And that's where we're at right now. right? So she's saying, I'm concerned with these annexation policies. I'm concerned with the annexation of the Golan Heights, with all these other policies. Netanyahu saying he's going to annex the West Bank. What do you think it's going to lead to? It's going to lead to a war. Whoever starts it, it's going to lead to a war. So there she is flipping her tune from, this is during her presidential campaign. She was accused of flip-flopping on a variety of different subjects. If you remember, gay rights was a big one. And many of us who supported Tulsi Gabbard as an anti-war candidate explained away those flip-flops, but can't explain them away anymore. I mean, she's clearly a flip-flopper, likes to flip-flop around when it comes to anything and everything, as long as it's going to get her into the crowd that she needs to get into in order to have political success. Or maybe she's now going for a Fox News job. It's hard to say. But there she is on Fox News saying that so-called reporters are doing Hamas's work for them because they're not telling the truth. And the truth is that Hamas is using these people as human shields. There is no such a thing as a human shield. Humans are just humans. And if you decide to shoot through an innocent person in order to get to the bad guy, that is on you, even if the bad guy was hiding behind that innocent person. We don't allow this in our everyday policing. We don't allow the FBI to get away with shooting 20 civilians in a restaurant in order to shoot the one bad guy sitting in the restaurant with the 20 civilians, and then saying, well, the bad guy used those civilians as human shields. We don't use this excuse in any other circumstance, yet when it comes to war, it's okay. No human life deserves to be a casualty of war. No human life deserves to be diminished to, well, they were just a human shield. There's no such thing. You are not a human shield. I am not a human shield. Those people were not human shields. They were human beings. Human beings. Not human shields, human beings. And they're dead. They're dead because you gave them the green light to shoot through all those people in order to get to the one bad guy. 20 for 1 at this point with the rate, or 15 to 1 at this rate with the Israeli civilian to 1 death. There is no such a thing as unless Hamas is literally grabbing a person right when the bullet is flying at Hamas, at the Hamas fighter, and they just grab a person and they shove that person in front of the bullet or the missile or or the grenade, whatever's flying at them. That is the only time you could even remotely say that person was used as a human shield. But humans just living their lives and Hamas living amongst them, like all of our politicians live amongst us, like our police officers live amongst us, like our National Guard lives amongst us. Many of them, they live amongst us. Many Americans have weapons just in case. You can't then say, well, they were living amongst all these civilians, and so therefore the civilians were all human shields. That is the truth. The truth isn't, well, all those civilians, yeah, it's just too bad they died. They were human shields, though, and that's the truth. What kind of reasoning away is that? And, this is so different from what Tulsi presented herself as, this compassionate. I've just found from my experience with Tulsi at this point is that she'll do anything to make money. That has been my beef with her, why my coverage of her changed and shifted was because after she stopped being a member of Congress, I did not like her methods of making money after her stint in Congress. I felt like it was deceitful of the people who supported her to be then milking money out of them in platforms that for people just wanting to follow her. People were giving $5 a month to her campaign, and then they switched and they started giving her $5 a month. A lot of people still believing it was kind of for the campaign or for the cause. Maybe it wasn't clear to them. To me, it was just a clear taking advantage of those people and then parlaying those $5 a month to her campaign to $5 a month to her personally, making her a millionaire. I had a problem with that. I had an ethical problem with that. I don't think that politicians should be riding on their fame and on their supporters' love for them, and then use that in kind of like a cultish manner, like a David Koresh, like you're gonna. I got this cult of people, and now I can convert them into making me a millionaire. I just find that ethically wrong. Can you do it legally? Yes. Plenty of politicians do, I know. but I have higher standards for certain politicians and for certain people out there. Tulsi being one of those people, given up on that, especially now that she's saying so-called reporters who are doing the work that I'm doing the work that Max Blumenthal, Jimmy Dore, there's a lot of Glenn Greenwald. You've got numerous reporters, numerous journalists who are reporting on the truth. And she's saying, oh, so-called reporters. Here's Max Blumenthal. She's losing people on this journey that she's taken towards her Fox News ambitions. It says, Tulsi, I've reported from inside Gaza and across the region, have done a documentary and 3 books about these issues. Please accept my invite to discuss political Islam at the Gray Zone News, along with your sudden support for the most radically ethno-supremacist government in Israel's history. You know me, your staff knows me, and yet you've never accepted an interview request. I think now is the time to demonstrate what you know before our respective audiences. Don't bow out like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. did. Here's Anya Parampil, his wife, and she also tweeted this out. She said, I wonder if Tulsi and RFK Jr. have had their daily conference call with Rabbi Shmuley yet. Hard at work filming up Likud's run for the U.S. presidency in 2024. Firming up Likud's run for the presidency. Here is Kim.com. Says, nobody likes baby killers and their advocates. You're done, Tulsi. So people are turning on Tulsi now. Patrick Henningsen says Tulsi Gabbard has turned out to be a nasty sectarian and neocon warmonger. Incredible. I guess it was all a political act after all. Yeah, very sadly, it does seem to be that way, especially when you look at her previous tweets and her stances. She had a more measured approach. She had a different viewpoint. The last couple of years when there was another attack on Gaza, Tulsi remained completely silent about that. So she had said things in 2018, as you saw in 2019, but then the attacks in Gaza in 2021, she remained completely silent. And a lot of people were really angry about that. A lot of her supporters were wondering, what in the world? Why are you suddenly silent on the indiscriminate bombing? I mean, the AP building was blown up. Journalists were killed this time around, and previously in Gaza, journalists were targeted and killed. And their buildings were blown up, and Tulsi remained silent. But that is because, I don't know where money is coming from, donors, backing, whatever. Something has changed, and Tulsi has flipped once again. And now she's lost even more support. That is for sure.